So, before we start, we're going to look at our I can statement for today. It always tells us what we're going to learn. Our I can statement is right up here. It's also on the board. I can retell a story using plot and theme. Now, last week we talked about theme. What is theme? Yashika?
The main idea.
The main idea, the big idea. What was the story about? Today we're going to talk about plot. Why is it so important to know about plot? Because pointing out the important parts of the story, that helps us to remember the story better. Okay, so think about that. We're going to play a short video about plot. I think you're going to like it.
Wow.
All right, and listen closely to what she says about what plot is.
Up and away! The hero flies through the sky looking for signs of trouble.
You're gonna have to be quiet so you can hear it.
No! Someone's up to no good. It's the evil Dr. M. The hero comes to the rescue. He uses his powers to save the day. The citizens of Megapolis cheer for their hero. But the evil Dr. M won't stop until she steals every cell phone in the world. What an exciting book! I can't wait to learn what happens next. What is the plot of a story? A story has a few different parts. The introduction is the beginning. In the introduction, you learn about the characters, who are the people or animals in the story. The main characters in this book are the hero and the evil Dr. M. You also learn about the setting, which is where and when the story takes place. This story takes place in an imaginary city. The plot is all the events that happen in the story. A lot of things happen in this story. What is conflict? In the plot, the characters usually come up against a problem. A problem in a story is called the conflict. The characters might struggle against nature or against machines. Sometimes a character might face another character. Other times, the character might face a big fear. The conflict in this book is that the evil Dr. M wants to steal every cell phone in the world. And the hero has to stop her. What happens in a story? Many events can happen in a story. New characters might show up. They might try to solve the problem in different ways. A lot of ups and downs can happen in a story. Well, in this story, the heroes have a plan to catch Dr. M. But it doesn't work. So, the characters come up with another plan. They're really excited, and they're sure it's going to work. But that plan doesn't work either. Stories can be exciting when you're not sure what's going to happen next. The events in the plot usually build up to one really big event, or climax. The climax is often the most exciting part of the story. How does a story end? A solution is an answer to a problem. By the end of a story, characters often find a solution to resolve their problem. When I read a story, I like to take notes on the plot. I might use a story map to jot down the problem and keep track of the events in order. I also take notes on how the characters learn things and change as the plot develops. Well, in the end, or conclusion of this story, Dr. M learns that she can't steal cell phones. The heroes learn that if they work together, they can solve tough problems. But not all stories have happy endings. Sometimes the characters don't solve their problems, or they face new ones. I guess you have to read the second book to find out what happens. But I checked it out, so I get to read it first. I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Poor Moby.
Oh, look at movie.
Okay, so that video was all about plot. She was showing us a story, right? What was the story about? What was the theme of the story? What was the big idea? Zanera?
It was a city.
There was a city, and what happened in the city?
Dr. M was trying to steal every cell phone.
Oh my goodness, that is definitely a conflict. That's a problem, isn't it? And then what happened?
Superbot, he saved the day.
Okay, how did he do that? Remember how he did it? You forgot? Let's see, Joshita, can you help her out?
She was shot a fire at her, and she fell in the garbage can.
Right.
And then she went to jail.
And then she went to jail, right? And we thought that was the end of the story, but then what happened, Jabriel?
She escaped.
She escaped from jail. So we're going to look at this. This is going to help us understand plot. And it's so important to be able to tell me those events, just like Zunera and Joshita and Jabriel helped us do, because that shows that you understand the story. So let's think about a story that everybody knows. I'm thinking about the Three Little Pigs. Okay? So think about the Three Little Pigs. In the beginning of the story, we find out about the characters. Who are the characters in that story? Rohan? Okay, so there's 3 pigs and a wolf.
And the mom. And the mom.
And the mom. We get a different marker.
And the dog.
In different versions, sometimes there's other animals too. But there's definitely the 3 pigs, their mom, and the wolf. Right? Those are important characters. In the beginning of the story, we also talk about the setting. That's where the story takes place, or when the story happens. Pranav, what do we know about the setting?
I think it's in a farm.
At a farm?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it starts off at a farm.
But then it
Do we
goes
know
in
where
a house.
else it goes?
Yes. It goes in a
Houses?
house,
Yeah, then it goes into houses. Okay. Also, in the beginning of the story gives us so much information. The beginning of the story tells us the conflict. Do you see the B's I put here?
Yeah.
That means the beginning. Okay. So the beginning of the story also has the conflict. Another word for conflict is problem. So what is the problem in the Three Little Pigs? Sidra?
The wolf comes and knocks on the pig's door.
What does the wolf want to do?
The wolf wants to eat all the pigs.
If I'm a pig, that's a problem, right? If I'm a pig and the wolf wants to eat pigs, that's definitely a conflict. So I'm going to write down that the wolf wants to eat pigs.
For lunch.
I would not be happy if I was a pig.
I would.
Okay, so now we know who our characters are, where the story takes place, and that the big problem, the big conflict in the story is the wolf is hungry and he has a taste for pigs. In the middle of the story is the climax. That's kind of all the events that are happening around this problem. can think of 3 main events that happen in the middle of the story. What's one of them, Rohan?
The wolf, he blew down the house.
Which house first? Remember? You can help him out. What was the first house, Jordan?
I don't know.
Joshita?
The house.
Straw house. Sometimes they call it hay, okay?
I was about to say.
Okay, so first he blew down the straw house because he wanted to eat the pigs. What happened next, Georgia?
They blow down the steak house.
Okay, so then he blew down the stick house. Okay, and then what happened after that is part of the story. Talha.
Then both of the pigs run to his big brother's house, and then the wolf knocks on their door and says, "Eggs, little pigs, open the door." And then when they don't open the door. So he uses a security camera to check who's there in front of the door because he has a bat.
It depends on the version. What was his house made out of? What was that third pig's house made out of?
Wood.
Bricks. So, did he blow the brick house down?
No.
No. He tried to blow down the brick house. Remember in the video, they said that sometimes in the climax, something might happen, but they fail. Right? The wolf did not eat a pig after he blew down the straw house.
Yeah, but
in some versions he did, but most of them he didn't.
No.
And then he tried again. He blew down the stick house. Did he get to eat a pig?
No.
No. And then he tried to blow down the brick house, but he couldn't even blow the house down. Okay, so those are the really exciting events in the story. That's the climax. The end of the story is the solution. How was the problem solved? So again, there's a lot of versions of the story. Think about your favorite. How was the problem solved at the end of the story? Gabriel?
The wolf went into the furnace
How did he get into the fire? How did he get into it though?
He got the chimney.
He went down the chimney. Right? I think that's probably the most popular story. So the solution is the wolf went in the chimney and got burned in the fire. Right? And he never got to eat those pigs. So we'll say wolf went in the chimney
And got
and got burned.
and died. Did he die?
Yeah. He definitely at least got hurt, right? If you fall down a chimney into some fire, you're gonna get hurt. But did he end up eating the pigs?
No.
And then that's the end of our story.
What about the mom?
Okay. So here's what you're gonna do. I'm gonna put this right back
The mom.
right back where it was.
The mom just stays in the house all the story.
Sometimes we have characters that don't play a big role in the story. So that's okay. When we're in the beginning and we hear about our characters, we just want to list them all because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if the mom is going to take the pigs out to Zep's zone, right? We have to keep reading to find out. So it was good that we put mom down there because maybe she had a part in the story. In this story, she didn't play a big role. She kind of just kicked her pigs out at the beginning and said, you need to go find your own home.
She
Right?
said, no, she said, you're too big, you can find your
Right, she wanted them to find their own home. All right, we're going to do our brain break.
Yay!
After our brain break, you're going to go back to your seat and we're going to do our daily fix-its. Do we talk while I get your brain break loaded?
No! Yes. No.
Do turn off. These boxes means to make it easier for us to fill out later. Remember, we have our anchor chart up here on the front. So the top box, it says rising action. That's the beginning. If you look at my roller coaster, the beginning of our story is when we're going up, up, up. So the action is just starting to get good, right? We also call that our conflict. When someone's got a problem, that's pretty interesting. So up here where it says rising action, there's 3 things we look for in the beginning of our story. What are those 3 things we look for at the beginning of our story? Joshita? Well, lots throughout. There's something just in the beginning. Remember what we talked about, Rohan? The characters is one thing. I would write that right here. We look for the characters. The setting is number 2. And the conflict. You should write all 3 of those words in the first box.
But what if you don't know where to spell it? It's right there.
It's all up here.
But we can't see.
You can't see? Is that better?
Yes.
Characters, setting, and conflict. Those 3 things are happening as our roller coaster goes up. As the story is getting good for now, the roller coaster is going up.
I can't read it.
I'll write it bigger.
Thank you. And settings.
Finally.
And then conflict. All 3 of those things are in the beginning. So as you read the beginning of the story, you want to ask yourself, who are my characters? Where and when does this story take place? So you can picture it in your brain. Remember when we did visualizing? You want to know, is your story in the ocean or is it on a farm? Because those pictures in your brain are going to look different. You're going to write this, this, and this. Box. Raise your hand if you're still writing these down. Other people? Setting and conflict. Okay, if you keep this in your reading folder, it'll help you as you do your plot for other stories. Although I really like how Sidra did hers. She made it nice and big so that she knows that's what she wants to find in the beginning of her story. In the middle of your story, they already put conflict in the middle box. We talked about conflict too. What's another, climax. We talked about the climax. So if I were you, I would circle that word climax. That's the top of the roller coaster. I would call it the most interesting part. Okay, so maybe in the box where there's climax, call it the most interesting part, because now you're at the top of the roller coaster. You don't know what's going to happen at the end, but it's really exciting where you are right now. Remember, there's a lot of things that could happen and fail, like the wolf. He tried blowing down the houses and he failed, and he tried and he failed. That's the climax, because you're wondering, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? He was persevering. So I would just circle the word climax. Maybe write down that's the most interesting part of the story. That's the part of the book for now where you just don't want to put it down. It's so good. The next box is the ending. They call it the falling action. You could write down the word solution. Now the roller coaster has been at the top, it's stopped, it's so much fun here. Now it's going to go down and we're going to see how the story ends. So you can write the solution.
I can't see solution.
And then here, go here. Solution. Okay, so I like to think about that roller coaster picture. You're going up, up, up. You're kind of hearing about the story. You get to the top. It's the best part of the story. All the interesting things are happening. You have no idea how it's going to end. You don't know when that roller coaster is going to drop. And then all of a sudden, the ending starts kicking in, and now you know how the story ends. Okay, that's solution written bigger in case you can't see it. That's when you find out how was the problem solved. Whatever the problem was at the beginning of the story, there's always some kind of an ending. Either it got solved or now there's a new problem. Like if the bad guy went to jail, but then all of a sudden he escaped, that's a new problem. That all happens here in the ending. And then at the, yes?
So we write solutions on the falling action?
Yep, falling action, the ending, you write solution. Maybe you want to write down how the problem was solved. That's what solution means. And at the very bottom is the theme. What's the theme again? Ishika? The main idea, the big idea. So you can write that in that box right there, that it's the big idea. Just write big idea. Okay, that's fine. All right, so you're gonna have this on your desk while we read our Reading Street story today, which is called The First Tortilla. But I've got something a little bit more fun to write on the map. You're all gonna get your own roller coaster. And as I'm reading the story, we'll color it after. As I'm reading the story, I want you just to write down what happened in the beginning of the story. Remember, you have to write about 3 different things. What are those 3 things you have to write, Zainab, in the beginning of the story? The characters, the setting, and the conflict. What's the problem in the story? In the middle of the story, when you're at the top of that roller coaster, you want to tell me the climax, all the super exciting events that are happening. And then the ending, how is the problem solved? Okay, and then I'll give you some time at the end to write about the theme. What's the big idea? This is only for your notes, okay? You're gonna write on this whatever you think is important. Remember when we did this with the 3 little pigs? We wrote down the mom was a character. Was she important in the story? Yes. She wasn't really important in the story. She wasn't in there a whole lot. It was mostly about the pigs and the wolf. So you might write some stuff down and then afterwards say, well, that actually wasn't very important. That's okay. It's better to write too much. Okay? So I want you to quietly get out your Reading Street book and turn to page 162. While I pass this out. Put your name on top and the title of the story where it says title. Alright, everybody should be writing down the title of the story on the line on your clock roller coaster. The title of the story is The First Tortilla. This story is a legend. We have our genre posters over here on the wall. I put an arrow by legend. A legend is an old story. It tells us a lot of information about a hero. It's usually been passed down from great-grandparents to grandparents to parents to children, so through lots of generations. That's what a legend is. Take a look at your village members. Make sure everybody has written the title of the story and put their name somewhere on the front. We want to make sure everybody has their name on it so we know whose it is. Alright, I'm going to start reading. You are going to listen to the story and write down important things in your roller coaster packet that happen at the beginning, the middle, and the end. Jade opened her eyes and yawned. She knew she had slept late because the sun had already risen. Time to awaken, precious Jade, her mother whispered. She was crushing dry chili pods in a matate. Time to greet the sun, her father said. He was weaving a basket. Each day, Jade's parents went to the village market to sell their colorful baskets. So part of the beginning is the characters in the story. We've already heard about a few different characters. I would write down the characters in this, sorry. You're writing it in this. Don't write the word characters, write down who the characters are for this story. So you should be here on the beginning page. Tell me who are the characters as I'm reading. What's the setting? Where does the story take place? If she was just waking up, maybe the setting is at her house?
No.
Jade jumped out of the hammock and greeted her parents. After breakfast, she hurried outside to water the garden. A huge volcano towered over Jade's village. On the peak of the mountain lived the mountain spirit. When the mountain spirit spoke, the earth rumbled and smoke filled the sky. Sometimes burning lava poured down the mountainside. Jade said a prayer. Mountain spirit, send us rain. Our bean and squash plants are dying. Sounds like a problem. If your food is dying, that's kind of a conflict, don't you think? I might want to write that one down. That her bean and her squash plants are dying. That's a problem. Usually when you grow food at your house, it's so you can eat it. And if your bean and squash plants die, well, you can't eat. Sure. They're your notes. She picked up a clay pot and walked to the lake. Jade greeted the other village girls, who were also collecting water. The once beautiful lake was almost dry. That's another problem. If they're getting water from a lake and the lake's almost dry, that's a problem. She filled the pot and returned to the garden. As she worked, a lovely blue hummingbird flew in front of her. You must go to the mountain spirit and ask for rain, the hummingbird whispered, and you must take a gift. That's kind of interesting, a talking hummingbird telling her to go to the mountain spirit. I think we're in the middle of the story now. Kind of sounds like some climax there. We're almost at the top of the roller coaster. If we know that this might help solve the problem. Talking to the mountain spirit might help solve our problem. We must be in the middle of the story now. If the mountain spirit talked to her as a bird, we're probably in the middle of the story now. Where the middle of the story is, I might write something that says a hummingbird told her to go to the mountain spirit. I wonder if that's going to help solve their problem. Yes?
I couldn't write that too.
That's okay. You can go back. You're right. You have the conflict right. Now we're in the middle of the story. Where the hummingbird tells her to go to the mountain spirit. That could be something that solves the problem. So I think we should write it down for the middle of the story. Clea's absent. Her father had told her small birds brought messages from the mountain spirit. Jade knew she must listen. So it sure sounds like this bird is important. The path is very dangerous, she said. I will guide you, the hummingbird replied. Jade ran back into the hut. What is it, my daughter? Her mother asked. Jade told her parents what had happened. Her mother smiled and said, a blue hummingbird flew over your crib when you were born. It was a special sign. Why don't the rains come? Jade asked her father. Years ago, we had rain and good harvests, but the people forgot to thank the mountain spirit. They didn't say thank you. We did not take gifts to the mountain. Now it is angry and there is no rain. I can take a gift of food, Jade said. Her father shook his head. A girl cannot climb the mountain. You will fall from the cliffs like a bird without wings. Our gardens are dying, her mother said. Soon we must leave our home in search of food. That will be the end of our way of life. Of the volcano for many generations. This had been the home of their ancestors. So now we know that her home, which is one of our settings, is by a volcano. When her parents were gone to market, Jade walked in the garden, wondering what she could do to help her village. The blue hummingbird appeared again. The mountain spirit will listen to you, the hummingbird whispered. Oh, we're talking about that hummingbird again. That must be something important in the story. Can I do it? Jade asked. Her father had said that she might fall from a cliff like a bird without wings. But if she didn't go, the entire village would suffer. Yes, I will go, she decided. She warmed a bowl of beans and squash and sprinkled chili powder on the food. I hope this pleases the mountain spirit, she said. She gathered a rebozo around her shoulders and followed the hummingbird up the narrow path. Rebozo. I don't know that word. I mean, maybe that's a word in a different language. But she wrapped it around her shoulders. What do you think a rebozo is? Rohan? A what? A bow and arrow? Do you wrap those around your shoulders?
Yeah, like Robin.
You might put it on your shoulder. But it says she gathered a rebozo around her shoulders. Say that?
Like a vest.
Maybe like a vest or a jacket. I think that's a good guess. What do you think? Maybe like a backpack. So she put some kind of clothing on her shoulders. Suddenly, the mountain shook and boulders came crashing down. I know boulders are really big rocks. This way, the hummingbird cried. I'm on page 170. Remember, in the middle of the story, our climax. We're trying to solve our problem. Looks like Jade is going to climb the mountain, isn't she? She decided she's going to climb that mountain even though her dad told her not to. She's going to climb that mountain. Jade jumped aside and the boulders missed her. Oh, thank goodness. Finally, they arrived at the home of the mountain spirit, where butterflies danced among a rainbow of flowers. A waterfall cascaded into a clear blue lake. So now where are they? Kanaya? They're at the mountain spirit's house. So was she successful in climbing the cliff?
Yeah.
She was. That was definitely part of our climax, that she had to climb the mountain. Climb the volcano, technically, to get to the mountain spirit. Why have you come? The mountain spirit asked. Thunder and smoke filled the sky. I came to ask for rain, Jade replied. Without rain, our plants will die and we will starve. So she's stating the problem again. Right? We already knew that was the problem, that there wasn't enough food because there's not enough rain. Your people no longer honor me, the mountain spirit said. I have not forgotten you, Jade answered. I brought you a gift. She uncovered the bowl of beans and squash. A pleasant aroma filled the air. Pleasant aroma. What do you think an aroma is? Zanera?
It means like, a smell.
A smell. She uncovered the food and it smelled good. The mountain spirit was pleased. You are a brave girl. I will send rain. And I will give you a gift. You may have the food the ants store in the cave. Jade looked at the ants scurrying on the ground. The ants carry pebbles, Jade said. Look closely, the mountain spirit whispered. Jade fell on her knees. What are you carrying? She asked the ants. This is corn, one ant replied. Taste it, another ant said, offering a kernel. Jade chewed the corn. Oh, what a sweet flavor, she cried. Where does it come from? I'm going to make a prediction. I don't think she's ever eaten corn before. Doesn't it kind of sound like she's never had corn before?
Yeah.
She didn't know what it was? And then she tasted it and she talked about how delicious it was. She sounded pretty surprised. It grows here on Corn Mountain. We gather the grains and store them in a cave. Come with us. Jade followed the ants into the cavern. On the floor, she found piles of corn. Corn is a gift from the mountain spirit, the ant said. Take all you want. Jade gathered the corn in her rebozo. There's that word again. Oh, someone said maybe it was like a backpack.
I said it.
I think that makes sense because she's putting something inside. She thanked the mountain spirit. She thanked the hummingbird for guiding her. And she thanked the ants for sharing the corn. That's a lot of thanking. Wasn't that one of the problems with the rain? The mountain spirit said that the village was not thankful, so he stopped sending rain. She just thanked the mountain spirit, she thanked the hummingbird, and she thanked the ants. She's showing how thankful she is. Then she carefully made her way down the mountain with her prize. Her parents had returned from the market. Jade entered her home and spilled the corn on the floor. What is this? Her father asked. Corn, Jade cried. The mountain spirit gave it to me. Here, taste it. Her father chewed a few dry kernels, and the corn softened with each bite. It was sweet and tasty. Good, said her father, but hard to chew. I will boil the corn in a clay pot, said her mother. It will make pozol. Pozol? I don't know that word either. I'm going to keep reading this time and see if I can figure it out. When Posel was ready, Jake's father tasted it. Wonderful, he exclaimed. We must thank the mountain spirit for the food. Kind of sounds like her dad is learning to say thank you too. They scattered kernels of corn in their garden and said a prayer of thanks. That afternoon, clouds gathered on the mountain peak. Soon, a gentle rain fell. Later in the season, corn plants pushed through the earth. The corn tassels blossomed. Soon, tender ears of corn appeared on the stalks. Elodies, Jade said as she picked the corn. I don't know that word either. That's a word in a different language. But if she's picking the corn, she probably feels happy. So maybe that's another word for hooray. Or I'm so happy. Yeah. That evening, they ate corn, beans, and squash flavored with red chili. When the corn was dried, Jade placed some kernels in a matate and crushed them with a mano. So I think a matate is a bowl, and a mano must be something hard that you can crush them with. She sprinkled water on the cornmeal. The gruel was thick, like dough. Yes?
At my house, I have this there's like a bowl.
Mhm.
It's like rock, it's like wrapped. And
Yeah.
It's like a bowl. And it's like a small, it's like a kind of stick thingy.
Mhm.
And then if we put stuff in it, like food, and
Yep.
mush them.
Then you can mush it with the stick.
I have that too.
So that's what she's visualizing in her
I
mind.
have that on my house.
I think it's called a stick and mortar or something like that. There's different names for it. So in Spanish, apparently, it's called a matate and a mano. So good. I'm glad that you used your knowledge at home and applied it to the story. So the gruel was thick like dough. Oh, we all know what dough is. That's what you make pizza out of. You make cookies out of it. You make bread out of it. Delicious. Masa, Jade said. She patted the masa back and forth in her palms until it was flat and round. And I know that you do that to make pizza. You keep hitting the dough back and forth until it's nice and round and flat. While they were eating, they smelled the masa cooking on the hot stone. What is that sweet aroma? Asked her father. The masa, Jade cried. There on the hot stone lay the freshly baked bread. She picked it up and offered it to her parents. Her father ate a piece. Very good.